when it arcs, like,
yeah, it's so bad.
I've not seen that on TV ever since it was on some heavy, weird looking ambulance things.
Around about 20 past 11, I got a telephone call at home to say that the Mackintosh building was on fire.
I was at my friend's party, I think, was it his 21st? Yeah, my friend's 21st, and we had a few drinks and things like that, and my friend says, he was on his phone, "Oh, your work's on fire."
We had a very successful opening. I went home at about 10:30. Everyone was just beginning to disperse. Went to bed, looked at Twitter, and saw things about a fire in GSA, and I thought there must be some kind of remembrance of the fire 4 years ago.
The night of the fire, I was in my bed and I heard what I thought was a bomb going off, actually, and got up and came into my husband, and he said, "Oh, I've heard a couple of fire engines and things like that, but I don't know what's going on," and went back to bed. And 5 minutes later, my neighbour came to the door saying, "What are we going to do?"
I looked on my phone and it was a live feed on Facebook. My work was on fire, and I had a few drinks, so I was feeling a bit tipsy, but so I didn't really appreciate the seriousness of it.
And then I realised it wasn't a memorial, and then I got on the phone to someone who's still here, one of our guys here, and he was outside because of the fire. We were evacuating the artist and all the people from the building.
I live relatively close to the campus, so I was able to go and look out the window, and all I could see on the skyline was the flames and the redness of the fire. And I could see, even from the distance that I live, and even so soon after the fire, that it was something pretty serious.
We stepped out into the close, there you go, there was the art school on fire.
One of the things that we realised really quickly was that, unlike the previous fire, the impact was much greater on other people than it was on the school itself.
Obviously, police and fire people were everywhere at that point, who just told us to go back into our house and wait. And then 2 o'clock in the morning, big bang in the door, and it was the police to say, "You've got 2 minutes to leave your house."
We thought it would be like the last time, where we might be shut for 2 weeks, as we were during the first fire. But very quickly it became clear that we were going to be shut for a very long time.
It wasn't until the morning after I was like, wait a minute, I've got no job. And then it started hitting me, and I started thinking about all my pals and what they were going to do. So I remember it very, very well, yeah.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? No! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it?
We had no idea what the scale of displacement was going to be, nor the scale of distress and need, but that was a matter that figured very keenly with us.
I left in my nightdress. It was a pain in the butt, to put it politely. Obviously, it was the fact that, you know, we had left with nothing because they didn't give anybody any time, and most people had either been in their bed or weren't actually even in their house.
My manager messaged in the Facebook chat, and he said, there's been a serious fire, we'll keep you updated, I'm sorry, but we don't know what the employment status will be for now. Someone
in the city declared that we were closed indefinitely. And that is a terrible thing to do to a business, because funders, people who want to support you, suddenly look at you on the internet and think they're closed now, they're not opening, it's indefinite, they may never reopen. So I think we lost a lot of funding and money and support just through that statement, that one statement.
It was all the things that you left behind that you don't realise till you've left them behind, that you actually needed to be able to function within society. People left their passports, my husband left his bank card. So it caused a lot of upset in the sense of trying to get the normal day-to-day things organised for people.
One of my managers, Amy, she phoned every single staff member up. She was quite emotional, but she said, "This is something I want to tell you in person, but we can't meet in person, so I'm phoning you." And she apologised so much for it, even though it's nothing to do with her, but she just felt partly responsible because it was her work as well. So it was emotional at the phone call.
There's a family above me, and the woman has 4 children. 2 are grown up, but she's got 2 autistic children. And obviously for them, it was a horror because they are used to routine and being in a certain place and everything having to be regimented, and having to get moved constantly around the city caused them a lot of problems.
It's very difficult because there's 127 people working the building, and so we were worried it would never be reopened because 127 people. We made a decision not to let any of them go, but that means you've got to pay their salaries over that period, which is indefinite, and the insurance has to back you up and make sure that they will also pay you so that you're not out of pocket.
Going back to online applications, it's really difficult, and I've struggled with that, but I'm enjoying focusing on my last year of uni now anyway, so I've got that in mind, so that's a bit of a silver lining because it gives me more time on uni. But when I think ahead of after uni and finding a new job is going to be quite difficult.
And I know another family that was moved 15 times within that 4 months. We were lucky, we haven't just 4 times, but they were moved 15 times.
Priorities for us were to stabilise that south side of the building and that east end or east gable of the building to ensure the residents in Dalhousie Street and the businesses in Sucky Hall Street could get back to normal as quickly as possible. I'm not sure that we necessarily communicated that as clearly and as emotionally as we felt it, but actually that's what we acted upon.
For the school to talk to the tenants in Dalhousie Street and talk to the businesses more directly would have massaged a lot of the pain everybody felt. You don't feel it as bad if at least someone seems to understand and is talking to you, but there was this sense that the school wasn't seen to be talking to enough businesses.
I would see it as a catastrophe that happened because not one person was in charge and nobody was talking to each other, and that was the biggest problem when we were all put out, was the fact that there was still no communication between the council, the art school and all the residents.
It was, the streets were shut down, buses were stopped, and there was also no communication really, I felt, between the fire department, obviously the health and safety department of the building, and with campus, then the campus staff members. It was just a very grey area.
I think it could have been handled better. It was as if everyone froze and didn't know what to do, didn't understand what was happening, and worst of all, no one was talking to anybody else.
For most people, they wanted, like, you could see that there was workmen standing outside our house, but we were told we weren't allowed near it, so they were basically protesting at the fact that if they were letting workmen do the work, how could the residents not get in with somebody there to look after them, because people had left medicines behind and obviously important documents that they needed. There's
that whole idea of the conspiracy theories of, was it an insurance job that's happened this time, around about this time when it went on fire, and then Victoria's as well went down, but I genuinely have no idea who to blame. Every taxi, every dinner table in Glasgow, people will give you their views on what may or may not have caused the fire. There is no secret knowledge at this stage. No one knows what caused the fire. There was no communication from the community, from the city council. We were basically just abandoned and left. I think there's definite scope for a catastrophe in Glasgow because the planning isn't there. It's been very lucky. Nobody died in Victoria's, nobody died in 2 fires in the Mackintosh. That is an unbelievable amount of luck that can't continue.
What's to come down? Back! When? No! When? No! What's to come down? Back! When? No! When? No!
It's went on fire twice, maybe by accident, maybe not, but the amount of money that was invested in it could be invested in other things, and that starts to make my blood boil a little bit, because the state of Sucky Hall Street, with the lack of shops being open now, the construction on the streets, that probably could have been dealt with faster if we weren't putting so much money already into the rebuild of the art school. Legally, it's an A-listed building, and so the custodians of A-listed buildings, which in this case is us,
have a legal responsibility to work with the authorities, that's Historic Environment Scotland in terms of the listed status of the building, and Glasgow City Council in terms of the planning and building control status of the building, to do the minimum required to stabilise the building. You're not allowed to knock down A-listed buildings.
I think there was a lot of argument about just knock it down. I think there was probably a decision that may have been the City and the School of Art that this is a tourist building. It's a real iconic landscape building. There's no reason you couldn't knock it down. You can knock down anything.
You imagine the scale of disruption and dislocation that we got from a building where most of the external structure remained intact. You imagine what kind of devastation you might have if bits of that actually, in an uncontrolled way, started falling into the street.
The impact is massive, both culturally and economically. First, culturally, because the O2 is a key venue right in the city centre. There's nothing like that, and the artists are already gone. O2 doesn't look like it's going to come back, so that's a huge loss if you like music or venues.
Sauchiehall Street really matters to Glasgow. It traditionally has been a very vibrant people's street, a place where people come to shop, but also where they come to socialise.
I'm sure the school disappearing has had a huge impact on not just Garnet Hill but the whole of Glasgow, partly because that was a huge tourist attraction, so it would have brought a lot of people to the city. Of course, things like that, even just the fact that it was such a huge fire, it can't help but have an impact on the community and the wider city.
We now have a new task, which is to also generate business that will bring people to the rest of the street, because we do get people coming simply for an exhibition or a film. So if they come here, then that they can go next door and buy something, go and have a meal, go and have a drink. We have this extra income generator function in the street now.
We're pretty confident in the resilience, not just of our neighbours in Garnet Hill, but our resilience in terms of our business neighbours in Sauchiehall Street and the surrounding area. We're pretty confident that Glasgow is a resilient city. It's one of the great things about living here.
What campus brought to Glasgow and to Sauchiehall Street was the staff, the atmosphere of it. We were very much customer first, so that has been a big blow to the culture.
Obviously, the things that need to be done now is finding out what caused it, making sure that if the art school is built again, that it doesn't happen again.
Opening is actually the start of the real problem. It's easy enough once you're shut in one sense, you're in waiting mode. You reopen, you have to start rebuilding.
We're extremely grateful for all of the patience that we have received since this latest fire, and we are absolutely committed to working with the people of Glasgow for the best outcome for the future of the school and for the city. We
will reopen, and I'm picturing the opening night at campus for the first time, and it will be a fantastic night. We'd have all the regulars back. I'm looking forward to seeing them.
That you need Sauchiehall Street, you need something like the O2. You need all these things actually for the culture of the city and for the life of the city. You can't let a whole street, especially a street as big as Sauchiehall Street, just die.
It's still a resilient place. The city centre is still a vibrant place, and in spite of all of these challenges, in spite of all of these difficulties, you still see people in Sauchiehall Street visiting Glasgow, living in Glasgow and having a great time there.
We can bounce back from this, because if Glasgow can do anything, it's bounce back from a horrible situation.
Oh, I wish I was in Glasgow with some good old pals of mine, some good old rough companions, and some good old smooth red wine. I was born in Glasgow, near the centre of the town. I would take you there and show